So welcome to part 2 of making tofu. In part 1 we've got to the point where we've now prepared our soy milk ready to coagulate to make the tofu. Today we're going to be using gypsum, which is what comes in our tofu making kits. There are other types of coagulants, and if you don't have gypsum, it's not the end of the world. You can also use rice vinegar, you can use lemon juice with approximately 3 tablespoons of that acid mixed into a cup of water, in the same way that you would put 2 to 3 teaspoons of gypsum into a cup of water. Okay, so what we're going to do is measure out 2 heaped teaspoons of gypsum into a cup of water. So I've put 2 heaped teaspoons of gypsum, the white powder, into the cup of water, and you'll see it sort of goes this cloudy milky color, and if you leave it, it will drop out of suspension. So before you chuck it into the soy milk, you need to give it a mix up again. Okay, I wanted to just show you how coagulation works in soy milk. If you have a pot, here's my amazing pot. The soy milk is up to here, let's say. When you add the coagulant in, you've stirred your milk and it's swirling around. The coagulant drops down to this level. You don't touch your milk again. So what happens is the coagulant actually settles in the bottom kind of third of the milk. This section in red has now sort of taken on the properties of the coagulant and is starting to settle. This section on the top will not have got it yet. Okay, so then what happens is, in our next step after adding the first round of gypsum, we allow this to settle, and then we add another layer of gypsum into the blue layer here, which will still be quite liquidy. Okay, so it's kind of a 2 or even 3-part process. It's more of an art than a science, but just remember, we're doing it in basically 2 steps. The first will affect that level, and the second will affect this level. And this is also why you shouldn't stick your spoon in and stir once you've already done the first addition of coagulant, okay, because you just break everything you've tried to form. Okay, so our milk is now really hot again, it's at boiling point. As I mentioned to you, the gypsum will probably have gone out of suspension while you wait, and this is what it looks like out of suspension. You need to mix it up so that it is well mixed with the water again. Now we turn off our heat, do a little bit of a stir. Typically it's suggested to do a Z shape or an N shape, but so long as your soy milk is moving, it's all good. And now you want to pour your gypsum in and try and do it so that it's evenly across your pot. Sometimes it's more useful to use a teaspoon or a tablespoon just to get it in. Okay. We're going to go with like 2/3 of the cup. Now don't touch it at all for the next 5 minutes. Promise me you won't touch it. Don't touch it. Coming back to our pot, we can see pretty immediately that there's already coagulation going on the top here. You can actually see the split. I don't want to move it too much, but what I normally do to test is take my paddle and put it a little bit of the way down, just a little bit. I've only put it that far in, and I can feel there's like a jelly layer beneath it, which is perfect. That's exactly what you want to feel. And now, as I explained to you, that's the bottom layer that's had the gypsum in, and now we're going to put some over the top layer. And you are able to give it a slight stir, but try not to do any disturbing. So you can sort of do this right on the top and pour in the remainder of our gypsum. I'm just going to put a spot more water in. What I like to do at this point, in our house it's quite cold and you do need the heat to make sure that coagulation happens properly. So I turn on the heat again and I let it get a bit more juiced up. And what you'll start to see is a proper split like here, where there's a clear liquid that begins to form. Okay, I can see my milk is heated up. I'm just going to turn it off and put the lid on again. Get a little bit more of a gentle mix around. Okay, just giving you a proper look into the pot, and you can see the split quite easily. You can see the water and the soy curds have split. So this is looking pretty much perfect, and what you can do is just flick some of the liquid over and around into the stuff that looks a little milky, and it'll separate it. So in some cases, traditional tofu makers actually keep the liquid to use it as the coagulant for the next day's tofu. Okay, so that's pretty much bang on. Okay, I just want to show you how to put together your puzzle kit. It's pretty self-explanatory, but nice to see how it actually works. It's in 6 pieces, like this. That's the lid. So we start with the base, which is there. These little thumbs up are to show you that it's this way up. There's actually a difference in the distance between the ends, that side and that side. It must be that way up, or else it's upside down. Okay, so all we do is take our side panel with the logo on the outside, click it into place. Similarly with the other one, click it into place, and then we just pop the outside last piece on, click it into place, and then you pop it on top of your stand. Boom. Now all you need to do is move it over to the sink, to the draining board, and put the cloth in, like so. You can also use a tray if you don't have access to a draining board like this. So now we're going to spoon the tofu into the box, into the press. It's quite nice to have a decent sized spoon to do this with. What I sometimes like to do is just drain off a little bit of the water just to make the cloth wet. And then you can get it into like you can get the edges of the cloth to press nicely into the corners. And now what you can do, literally pour slowly, pour the majority of the water through. And the reason you do it slowly is so you don't break the lovely big thick cloudy curds here. You can see all the water draining away. And I like to spoon in my curds so they don't break. Just press it into the corners a little. Looking good. And the last step is to just fold over your cloth. And this is why we use poly cotton, because you actually don't want too thick a cloth, otherwise it can kind of jam up the little box. Put the lid on. I like to give it a little squeeze. And then we'll put 2 cans on top. Okay, it's pretty robust, so you can give it a bit of a squeeze. One thing you are going to notice while your tofu presses, and I would say 15 minutes roughly for the minimum. But what you will notice is, because this is raw wood, it's going to flex. This is going to bend a little bit, and so is this. But that's totally fine and totally normal, and once it's bent a little bit once, it kind of stays in that shape. I haven't actually treated this particular box with coconut oil, but I will after we've done one test with it. And yeah, it just needs to be rinsed properly afterwards, and you put it in your drying rack and let it dry thoroughly before you put it away, otherwise you will wind up getting mold. It has to be properly dry. So the tofu's been sitting for probably half an hour, and we're going to have a look and see if it is firm enough. where we just pop out the lid and have a quick look at the tofu. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So you can either just pull it out using the cloth, or you can lift the whole thing and just use your hand to pull out. And there's our block of tofu. Pretty good. Let's see how much this guy weighs. Okay, so zeroed. And this block of tofu is weighing in at 300 grams. 307. Cool. Cool, so now we're going to simply snap apart the tofu press. For those of you who are using something else and not a tofu press, you don't have to do this part. And you'll see that it has gone curvy like I explained, but it never gets more curvy than that. Very quick rinse and pop it in the dish drying rack. Okay, so you can either eat your tofu straight away, or you can store it in cold water, which seems counterintuitive since you just squeezed out all the water, but can pop it in cold water and leave it in your fridge. So long as you rinse the water every day, it stays fresh for up to about 5 days. Cool, so I hope that was helpful, and yeah, feel free to drop me a message on kath@fullsome.co.za, or in the comments below if you'd like some guidance or if things didn't go quite right. It takes 1 or 2 times to sort of get the little tips and tweaks going, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll be successful. Cool, have fun!